Okay, so this isn't what we're sitting in now is not the original building. The congregation began in 1830, and this building is 1857. So as the congregation grew and they were able to tear down the old building, actually relocate it to the back of the property, and it functioned as a parish hall for a while. And then later on, they were able to build a parish hall, which was separate from this building. And then in 1918, the tower was completed, and that was a separate venture by the Leonard family, who gifted it to the church. But I was told that at one time, for those that remember, because we still have people in our congregation here in their 90s, and they remember the church and how it was even before the tower. And apparently from the altar, you were able to see the Grand River. So that where the tower is was the front door of the church. What I know of the congregation, this is regarded as the mother church of Brantford, simply because it's the mother church of the Anglican churches in Brantford. So every church Anglican church you see in Brantford was, in a sense, an offshoot of Grace Anglican. And outside of the Mohawk Chapel, it is the oldest church, Anglican church within Brantford. So Grace Anglican was, once again, the mother church, and part of its DNA is to plant other churches. So in 2007, we started Counterpoint, which I'm the priest of, and I came here in 2010. So in 2011, we decided to, in a sense, rebrand, new logo, new signage, and we put a sign on Albion Street. So myself, and along with a couple of other people from Counterpoint, we started to dig, and I think the first shovel, we hit something, and we just thought it was a big rock. So we kept on moving further away from where the shovel was hitting this huge enormous, we called it, rock. And then we looked down, we started clearing it, and we saw some lettering, and we thought at first it was maybe an old sidewalk or whatever. And so we didn't really uncover anything, and we put the grass back over it, and then we just moved the sign another 3 feet and put it where it is today. Then we brought it to our church board and said, this is what we think it is, we're not sure. And at first people didn't want to uncover it, because once you start uncovering tombstones and seeing what's under there, it can be very expensive. So we said, listen, we're just going to uncover it, we're not going to lift it up, we're not going to see what's underneath. So we had decided to do a Halloween service around the tombstone, and we uncovered it. So there we were, people dressed up in costumes and doing other things. So there we were, in our costumes with children. You had some kids dressed up as zombies, and we had different newspapers come and cover the story, and we uncovered it. And at first we thought it was this little rock, or a little tombstone, because if you look at our church grounds, there were those that are quite small, but this was like almost 6 feet. So we kept on uncovering, and we're like, where on earth? And I believe the date on the tombstone is 1847, and the person who the tombstone belongs to is William K. Smith, and very much tied to the land we're currently on. Him and his son provided some of the materials for Mohawk Chapel. There's a tie with Joseph Brant. I believe his son married one of Joseph Brant's sisters. He's also part of the Freemasons in town. So anyway, it was quite a find, right? Like we thought, okay, it's just some poor guy that we knocked over his tombstone, but to see that it was someone that had some influence and position within our city, it was very interesting. And then we started to do a little bit more research and wondering who this William K. Smith was. So that was quite exciting. The other thing tied to the church that made news is a memorial bell was stolen outside. So apparently the scrap metal value is about $1,500, and it was originally at St. Stephen's. So St. Stephen's is a church that was in the Henderson survey, and it amalgamated with Grace 10 years ago, and that church was what it's called deconsecrated and leveled, and now there's homes. So if you go to the Henderson survey, there's a pocket of new homes. That's where St. Stephen's was, and it was a bell that was gifted, I believe, from Huron University College to St. Stephen's. And so we have the base and a pole and no bell. So I always joke it can be the memorial like tetherball pole. So we want that. Yeah, and it hasn't been recovered. I think once it went to the scrap metal, it was gone, because people actually realized it was gone, because it's something that's always there and you don't really notice it until it's gone and you see this pole. I was actually the first one to notice it and called the church board. And then, so I wouldn't say that's a funny story. It's quite sad that the people stole the bell, but I think it's funny in the sense that we didn't realize it was gone until the people already made money off of it. Then the other, I guess this would be my last funny story. This came to mind. Weird things that happened in the church. It was a summer's day, so we're doing our early morning service, and we had the church open, the back doors, just because it gets really warm in here. So I was at the front altar, and there I was, celebrating the Lord's Supper, and I look down the aisle, and I see this squirrel coming down the center aisle, and I'm like, where is this thing going? And it came up to the front and hopped into the front pew, and the whole time my mind's on this squirrel, and throughout the service I didn't see it leave. Like, maybe I turned and it may have left, and then there was an older woman in our congregation who was going and making sure all the books were in order, going up and down the aisles, and she's approaching this this pew, and I'm like, because I'm still far off, and I'm like, oh my goodness, hopefully the squirrel doesn't like jump up into her face and attack her or something like that. But we don't know where the squirrel went, and then a couple of days later, I opened the door, and the squirrel wasn't in the church. It was actually made its way all the way to the hall, and it was going up and down the stairs, and it was caught in one of the stairwells. So and I didn't know where it was going, and every time I would approach it would go hide somewhere, and I couldn't find it, and then it was setting off our alarm. And so we finally got the squirrel out. I just left the door open for the day, during the day, and it was gone. But I guess if you look, there's a couple of signs around Brantford. It says the Grace Anglican Church welcomes you, and I think the squirrel took it literally. And it's nice to see that squirrels feel at home in the Anglican Church and can hang out here.